very good morning to Mr. Yu, and today I would like to present the topic of education and economic growth in Malaysia. First of all, we have the general introduction on the background of study, and this study will discuss about the problem statement, which determine the research objective and research question in aspect of how overall the study is being carried out. The significance of study and the chapter of structure has also been discussed in this past lastly. For the background of study, a higher education level is one of the most discussing factors of economic growth. The relationship between the education and economic growth has been a focusing issue of research in the economic. There are some ways to influence the economic growth, such as the education is converted to increase the labor productivity by having knowledge and skills, facilitating technological progress and the innovation. Hence, in this study, we will study the long-run relationship between the education and economic growth in Malaysia. From the past research, Barrow has shown that there is a direct relationship between the education and economic growth in Malaysia which is measured by the schooling rate to the economy. From this research, we have found that the relationship between the education and economic growth is negative. This result might be caused by the data issue and schooling variables. The weak data was likely to be one of the main reasons for discouraging results in the recent empirical literature on the human behavior, on the human capital and growth. This is because the different data can be carry out the different results and the policy recommendation. The impact of the different data sets on the education and economic growth can be measured by the empirical model, and this model is based on the augmented solo model. This model is used to predict the coefficient for capital should be positive, and the population growth coefficient should be negative. Besides, the economic development of society is possible by going through the development new technology and transfer them into their own social and cultural life. The technological development is closely linked with the economic, and this will causing the both science and technology, production and technological opportunities, circulation of scientific knowledge could provided to grow the individual with higher economics and politics. The speed changes in new technological has increasing the tendency of continuous modernization and development and the competition for having more new technology and the knowledge. Thus, it will affect the education system in the Malaysia. Moreover, the development of technology and scientific advance are once determining and shaping a country's economic development, and they emerge it as outputs of the education. The technological development and changes are very fast in the whole world, so to develop a country, this is hoped to achieve by the become industry with imported technology and are no longer benefit with these opportunities. This is because the imported technology is losing its adequacy and validity rapidly, and they also cannot sustain the competition capability. Hence, in this study, we will examine the relationship between the education and the economic growth in Malaysia. On this study, we will focus on the following question like, is there any significant relationship between the economic growth and education in Malaysia? And is there any significant relationship between the inflation and economic growth in Malaysia? And lastly, Is there any significant relationship between the internet and the economic growth in Malaysia? The main objective for our research is mainly focusing on analyzing the education and economic growth in Malaysia. And for the specific objective, we would like to investigate the relationship between the higher education and economic growth in Malaysia. We also investigate the relationship between the inflation and the economic growth in Malaysia. And last, we also have investigated the relationship between the internet and the economic growth in Malaysia. For the significance of study, we have figured out the factors that affect the economic growth in Malaysia. This research can assist the government to have a good idea on how to grow the economy in Malaysia. After this study, we found that most of the researchers have focused on the long-run relationship between the education and economic growth in Malaysia. Hence, we would like to find out the factor that will affect the economic growth in Malaysia. In order to better understand the economic growth, policymaker needs to access the information based on the aspect of economic growth, which are including the higher education, inflation, internet, and other relevant factors. The policymakers can use all of this to make more important decisions to grow the economy's growth or improve their system. For the chapter of structure, in chapter 1, we will discuss about the background of study, research problem, research objective, and the research question and the significance of study. And in chapter 2, we will present the literature review, which is discussed about the empirical and theoretical review from the research that we have done in the past. Under chapter 3, we will be discussing the methodology of the study of which is included. In chapter 2, we will discuss further about on the economic growth and education in Malaysia according to the past literature that we have found. Firstly, we have the empirical review for the economic development by applying the neoclassical theory and the economic growth theory, and followed by the empirical review study of the relationship of education, inflation, and the internet with the economic growth. Under the neoclassical theory, economic growth has been expressed by the human capital factor, which included in the model and role of human capital, and this is highlighted in the process of income difference country and the different time range. The main purpose of this approach is to explain the source of economic growth has difference in the different country and the different time range. Neoclassical approach is an instrument for the estimation of long-term growth, which is trends consistently. Under the economic growth theory, this theory is used by the researchers to analyze the phenomena and the behaviors which are outside of this domain, which are the education, bureaucracy, politics, and the history. And in fact, the economic approach is used to explain the human behavior, which is extremely fertile to proven by the performance in research of Nobel awarded of economy. To build an economic approach, it is attempt to provide a comprehensive framework for understanding the human behavior, and they use the data selected in the basics of development. In the real world, so the observation on the effect of education could be reflected by the behavior of educated individually. So that's all of my part. Thank you.